This is the second in a series of resources that consider supply and demand. Part 1 looks at the law of demand, defining the law and providing the context from which we derive the law. Part 2 of the series considers the law of supply, providing the same analysis as in Part 1. Part 3 combines the laws of supply and demand to find the point of equilibrium and considers what happens if either quantity supplied or demanded change. Part 4 of the series looks at price floors and ceilings, which are government-imposed constraints placed on the prices at which goods may be sold. Part 5 inspects those factors in the marketplace which may change the overall demand for a particular good. Part 6 considers what can change the overall supply of a good. The final resource in the series inspects the interplay of changes in demand and supply and determines what the overall effect on the equilibrium price and quantity supplied would be. Much like quantity demanded, quantity supplied depends primarily on price. More specifically, it is the quantity that producers are able and willing to produce at a given price point. So while demand focuses on the response of consumers to price, supply is the response of producers to price level. The supply schedule is a chart that shows what quantity will be produced at each given price point, assuming all other variables remain fixed. If we consider our pizza example from the previous resource, recall that the possible pizza prices were $2, $4, $6, $8, and $10. At $2, the companies cannot even cover their costs of production, so they won't produce any pizzas. At $4, the companies will barely cover their costs, so they are willing and able to produce 100 pizzas. At $6, they produce 200 pizzas. When the pizzas cost the consumer $8 each, the producers supply 300 pizzas. Finally, for the maximum price of $10 per pizza, the companies will produce 400 pizzas. As with the various demand curves, we form a conglomerate picture of all the individual supply schedules to create a market supply curve. One main difference between the supply and demand curves is the idea of a minimum supply price. This is the lowest price at which a product will actually be supplied. As mentioned before, producers have to cover their costs of production, such as raw materials, wages, and other expenses. If the market price is too low, then those costs are not covered, and the company will go out of business. From our pizza example, we get the following supply curve. Note that the minimum supply price would be $2 per pizza, since there would not be any pizza supplied at that price. Connecting the points of data, we form a line that points upward. So the higher the price, the more pizzas supplied. This sets up the law of supply, that there is a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied, ceteris paribus. So long as all other factors remain the same, if selling price increases, so will the quantity supplied. It is also important to note that while demand is from the viewpoint of the consumer, supply is from the viewpoint of the producer. Since they are in the business to make money, producers will sell more at higher prices due to a larger profit margin. Of course, this results in changes in quantity supplied, which is the change in the amount firms are willing and able to provide when the price changes. Graphically, this is movement along a given supply curve. So how do the supply and demand curves interact? Stay tuned for the next resource in the series.